The back there, but it won't hurt you. Oh, the barge is all lit up, Linz. Look at that. Gosh, that looks really glam, doesn't it? They've just done that, haven't they? Oh, well, I came the other day and it wasn't lit up. There was nobody there at all. Perhaps it's, I don't know, weekendy thing. Oh, lovely. So as I said, there's about 200 common mute. They pair for life, the common mute swans. So it's really quite lovely. There was, I'll tell you about the buildings first. So these are supposed to look like the old industrial area of Lincoln, which is what it was originally. Old warehouses, wharves and things like that. When I came to the city, as I say, 40-something years ago, this was derelict land. It was waist-high nettles, broken glass. It was pretty horrid. So whether or not these look like warehouses, they're still a whole lot better than that. But this building was here. This was designed in the 50s by Sam Scorer, and it's a listed building now because this is a hyperbolic parabola, the roof. It's a Pringle shape. And that was a Ford showroom. The latest model Ford would rotate on a turntable in this circular bit. Still there, apparently, the turntable underneath. And people would come for a sort of walk by the Brayford of an evening and think, oh, I must have a new Ford. Look at that turning around there. You know, that was the idea anyway. Now this is Lucy Tower Street. It says so everywhere, which is absolute rubbish. Lucy Tower isn't here at all. Lucy Tower is up inside the castle. Lincoln Castle is very unusual. It's got two mottes, two high points. You normally have a mott and a bailey, which is the flat bit around. Now Lincoln's got two. It's got the Lucy Tower and it's got the observatory. The only other one in the land to have two high points is Lewes Castle in Sussex. That's got two high points. Lucy Tower is one. When you look at the hilltop, you will see it's a sort of low wall with a tree inside. That's the Lucy Tower. Actually, this is called Lucy Tower because an early map maker got it wrong. There was a tower here, and he labelled it Lucy Tower. But that's why it's called Lucy Tower Street. But it was this early map maker that basically made a terrible mistake. And we're still calling it Lucy Tower Street. Anyway, the other high point inside the castle is the observatory. Now that's quite interesting. That was built so they could observe any prisoners making a dash for it across the flat lands here, because it wouldn't have been as built up as it is now. Obviously, you would see somebody making their escape. And also, one of the prison governors was a fellow called John Merriweather, and he was a keen astronomer. So he had his telescopes and things up on the top of the observatory so that he could watch the stars. So it's observatory in both senses. Now you'll see the county flag of Lincolnshire a lot. It's not very windy today, so it won't be sort of doing its stuff, but I'll tell you anyway because it's all over the place. Basically, it was designed by a woman about 15 years ago, and it has two green quadrants which represents the field, the agriculture of the county, because we supply about a third of the nation's fruit and veg, apparently. And the blue quadrant represents the big skies of Lincolnshire. Because it's so flat, the sky is a big feature. The yellow bit across the middle is our sandy North Sea coast, and the fleur-de-lis right in the middle is the symbol of the Virgin Mary, and she's the patron saint of the city. So that's what it means, and you'll see it everywhere. It's quite bright, you can't miss it. I'm going to tell you about High Bridge. This is coming up. So, High Bridge, how do I tell you without showing you? This is difficult. So, Fosdyke Canal goes out that end of the Brayford, yes? Coming in at this end is the River Witham, which comes up from Grantham. It comes into the Brayford and goes straight out again. In, out, right-hand bend. Took me years to work that out. And the Witham flows underneath Lincoln's High Street. The High Street is running parallel with where we are now, and the River Witham flows underneath it. The bridge that carries that is called High Bridge. That was built in the 1100s. The shops on the top are 15th, 16th century. It's the oldest bridge in the country with shops on the top. And underneath it, where you can walk down some steps and wander along the tow path back to the Brayford Pool here, that's called the Glory. Its other name is the You can just imagine slipping a body into the river with them under cover of the bridge on a dark winter's day, and the river would carry it out to the North Sea, somewhere near Boston. It would never be seen again. So the river is coming in here. This is the Brayford Pool. The river comes in there, goes straight underneath us, and out High Bridge there, and the Glory Hole, which is at that end. That's a lovely part of Lincoln to wander around. Really nice. The nice little church coming up is Mary Le Wigford. The church is Anglo-Saxon, it's older than the cathedral, and in the wall, embedded in the tower to the right of the main doorway, is a Roman gravestone. It's a sort of palm-shaped, huge, creamy coloured stone. And we shall see it. It's hidden behind the signs at the moment, but it's coming into view now. Can you see it there? That's a Roman gravestone, that pointy thing. It says Earth Academy built, I think. But I don't know why it's there. I guess if you've got a big stone kicking around, you would use that rather than lots of small stones, because it saves time and resources. But that's what it is, a Roman gravestone. And this is our central railway station. It's the only railway station now. We did have two. It's chaos. You can sit like 11 to 20 minutes in the hour waiting for the various level crossing gates to open and close. But this is the only one. It's 1848 neo-Gothic. But we do have a through line to London now, so we don't have to change all the time. The market area of Lincoln is down here on your left, down there. The new Cornhill Quarter is rather nice now. And this is our shiny new transport hub. It might look like a bus station. I'm told it's a transport hub. So that's it there. And we've got a good car park now, because this is a town that's not built for cars at all. So having a new car park is quite exciting. This is the bridge that's caused all the problems. Pelham Bridge. As you see, nothing's moving at all. It's the first bridge in the world to have steel reinforced rubber shock absorbers. And the Queen opened it, so it's very important, would you believe? It's a blooming nuisance at the moment. So, there's the flag of Lincoln. You're drooping a bit. What do you see on the flagpole just over there? That's Siemens factory, and they make turbines. They are very successful and very important to the city. They employ about 1,500 people. Everybody knows somebody who works for Siemens, and they helped, they contributed towards the uni, the engineering block, obviously, and the global company that is. Now, if you look at the central tower, you can see where I said the roof goes in one level and comes out another. It drops at the central tower. And the central tower itself is 83 metres high now. In the 1300s, they put a wood and lead spire on the top, making it twice as high. Tallest building in the world for 250 years. This is the Witham. That's the Glory Hole up there, and it's going off out to the North Sea there. Yes. But in 1548 there was a massive storm which blew the spire down, so they've just left it, but it's still magnificent. But you can see the difference in the roof, can't you? It comes in there and goes out there. I love that. This is St Swithin's, this little church. It's a Victorian church, built on the side of an earlier wooden church which burnt down. And this is where Winston Churchill stood, here on the left, on this wrought iron balcony. In 1910, he addressed the people of Lincoln from up there, and they threw tomatoes at him. I don't think they were quite ready for him. So, does anybody know when St Swithin's Day is? The legend has it that if it rained on St Swithin's Day, it will rain for 40 days and 40 nights. You know when it is? It's not far away. It's the 15th of July. So, your fingers crossed, fellas, fingers crossed. Now, we know the we know that the Brayford Pool came out this far because underneath this building here is a Roman wharf. And you stand looking at this Roman wharf and your brain just goes diddly diddly because you're looking at a Roman wharf. The central heating pipes at the back are going over your head. And it just, you just doesn't compute. Now this is Silver Street, and this is where the jewellers had their businesses. And of course I've told you about James Ward Usher, who made the Lincoln Imp into a charm. The £59,000 he left in the city, they used to build the Usher Art Gallery, which is just around the corner. That was designed by Sir Reginald Blomfield, a water tower made. Yeah. And down here to your right, you'll see another of Blomfield's designs. This is our central library, with obviously research centre into the works of Tennyson. Just down there, that rather slabby design there. Can you see the silver head on the drill bore? That's another venue for live theatre. I love it. The little Catholic church ahead of us is the wrong way round. Churches are normally built east-west. This one is built north-south because they couldn't get it in east-west. And here is the Usher Art Gallery in the lawns here. Lowry, DeWitt, Turner. And visiting exhibitions, so Google the website, Usher, and find out what's on at the moment. I think they've got the photography exhibition is in there. That's the collection. The white building there is our archaeological past. So if you want to know what it was like living amongst the reed beds and fishing from a dugout canoe, they've got them in there. They've got a cracking little restaurant and cafe, and they sell nice jewellery. All of these are free. Last entry 3/4 to 4. I mean, what's not to love, really? Look on the far hilltop. Can you see that pointy spire? About level with where we are now. That's a memorial to the fallen from Bomber Command. There's 58,000 names at the bottom of that. And when you get close, it's quite a complex and beautiful structure. It's not just a needle thing. And that's a visitor centre as well. Yeah, I think you have to pay for the car park. I don't think you pay to go in. But there's another bit you can pay to go in, and it's got a wonderful thing with sound and lights, and they kind of bring the blitz to life. It's quite moving. Adam and Eve pub here on your right has a secret passageway to the cathedral. That's really old. This is Pottergate Arch, because they found Roman pottery nearby. But up in front of the bus there's a red pillar box. Now that's in front of the old deanery. That is the oldest red brick building in the city, and it's where Catherine Swinburne rented rooms in the 1380s and 90s to meet her lover John of Gaunt. They had 4 children, and Wentworth obviously, but they were finally married, and the king legitimised everything, and Pope blessed everything, so all was made well. But that's where they used to meet. And this is the Caganal Chapter House I was telling you about. It's an absolute gem. That was built on in 1220. That's where the business of the cathedral was conducted. That's where Edward I held a parliament and decreed that the firstborn son of the monarch would be the Prince of Wales, and he still is. And here is Edward I, standing in this niche with his wife Eleanor. There she is. There they are, looking rather splendid. Now Eleanor died at Harby, which is a little village just down the road, 10 miles? And she was brought here to the cathedral to be embalmed, and then when her body left on its funeral tour to Westminster, where she was finally interred, they marked the spot every time that the cortege stopped with an Eleanor cross. And you might have heard of these. They started here, or Harvey, and then went all the way down to Westminster Abbey. And this is Judgment Porch I was telling you about earlier. If you look, you can see Christ sitting in judgment in the middle, the good souls swanning off up to heaven, and the sinners plunging to hell. To get the message across, you say, because the populace couldn't read and write, so you've got to get the message across some other way. Now this is an extension to the cathedral. That was added in 1285 to house the shrine of Saint Hugh. Bishop Hugh, who built the great Gothic church, has now been made a saint, and his shrine is in there, as is the Lincoln Imp. That's where the Lincoln Imp is, in that bit as well. And some fabulous wood carvings, absolutely fabulous. Now any sign of the fulcrum? It sometimes sits on a ledge up here somewhere. I don't suppose it's doing it now. On your left is the old Bishop's Palace. It was the head of the largest diocese in the land. It's stretched from the Humber to the Thames. It's all round from here in Lincoln. And on your right, this is the Bishop's Eye. This rose window is about as good a curvilinear tracery as you will get. And on a sunny day from inside, it's absolutely psychedelic. I think the idea is the bishop is looking out over the flatlands to see the souls coming to the great church. But it's a magnificent cathedral. It was Ruskin who said it was worth 2 of any other cathedrals in the country. And I'm biased, I know, but I agree with him. I think it's wonderful. That is Old Tom. Not Big Ben, it's Old Tom, that bell. Oh, they're selling ice cream, so just an ice cream. Now have a look as we come round the corner, because you remember you've got the Swineherd of Stowe and Bishop Hugh to look out for. Now is it, I can't see. Can't see. But you'll see the frieze on the far side, which shows what happens to sinners. And the frieze on this side is under, yes, I thought it was under scaffolding, but you can have a look, you can get the idea anyway. So we're back to where we started. Steep hill is down that way, heart attack steep, so think about it. This is Exchequer Gate, and that is the Castle Square, Castle Hill, where you'll find the Visitor Information Centre and so on. You're very welcome. Have a good day.
I'm not done. Oh, we can share Amanda's. Right, ready. We can share it. I'm not even paid so much. I'm not even chickens now. Yeah, no, I hate having my face. I'm having a videographer and a photographer. We'll be on the news, yeah. Do let them out!
Building is a visitor information centre, and they will give you all sorts of information, send you tickets for this and that. Got some half decent gifts which aren't tourist tat, quite nice. On the domestic information as well, down the hill is Steep Hill. Guess why it's called that? It really, really, really is steep, like heart attack steep, so think about that. You've tried it, have you? Yeah. And to the right is what we call Bailgate. And if you want to do some shopping, which is not sort of chain store stuff, this is the area to go to. It isn't as cheap as some of the other shops, but you find nice things, Anyway, just saying. Nice wine bars and coffee shops. Really, really nice part of town to shop. So, okay then. We're going to start with the cathedral, obviously, because here we are. If you look at this west front, this is the oldest west front in the land. And the 5 Norman arches, those are the round ones, have been there since 1072. Bishop Remigius started his cathedral in 1072. It was a little chunky job sitting on top of the hill. It wasn't a great soaring Gothic masterpiece, it was a Norman shoebox, that's a bit insulting. Took it 20 years to build, then a fire in the roof brought some of the thing crashing down, and it was rebuilt by another bishop called Bishop Alexander, but more particularly, in 1185, there was an earthquake here in the city, and it brought the whole lot down, except for this west front, which, as I say, is the oldest west front in the land. And you can see where Remigius' church ends, because everything is round, and where the church built by Bishop Hugh of Avalon begins, because his style of architecture is Gothic. So you've got pointed windows, little lancet windows, and soaring upwards, great buttresses holding the whole thing up. In fact, there's enough there's enough lead on the roof to cover 4 football pitches if you put it all together. And without these great pillars of stone taking the weight, it would crumble. Some of the early cathedrals did, because they hadn't quite got that right. And the buttresses are sometimes joined to the building, are built as part of the wall, and sometimes they're separated but joined by a little finger of stone. It still takes the weight out and down into the ground. We've got some fabulous flying buttresses on the chapter house as we go around. So we'll talk about that as we go along, because we're almost definitely going to get held up on Yarborough Hill. They're mending Pelham Bridge, which is one of the main thoroughfares of the city, and it's rather messed up the traffic flow in the city, so we'll have to just look at it. Now then, I like this head. If you look at the wall here on your right, about the same height as we are, it's a little head sticking out the wall. And I don't know why it's there, I just like it. Somebody said it was a choir master's wife looking for the choir master. I don't even know if it's male or female, but probably thought somebody looking for the bus, who knows? Old chancery here with the flagpole, the bishop's palace next to it, both listed buildings, both 13th, 14th century, older buildings behind the facade that you can see, of course. We'll stop the bus for a moment here, because this is important. That's the eastern gateway to Roman Lincoln. If you want to get up and have a look down here, you can, because it's important. So this was a show-off gateway, because in AD 47, we were the head of the province called Britannia Secunda, a city of about 7,000 people, really important, by Roman city standards anyway. And this was to show how important we were. The walls were 8 metres high, 3 metres thick, and it was a double arch, like a McDonald's arch, if you can imagine that. This is one carriageway we're in now, that's the other carriageway. But the most important thing is Roman street level. Can you see how far down it is? It's 2 or 3 metres underneath us. And wherever we go, certainly wherever we've been thus far, we're driving over Roman. And every time they build something in the city, you get about that far down, and you have to get the archaeologists in to record, to catalogue, to seal, to preserve. It takes ages. mean, you can add 6 months onto any project because you always find archaeological stuff about that far down. We extended the car park where I used to work, and we found the bones of a Roman centurion about that far down. It's everywhere. Yeah, you get a bit blasé about it really, but it's quite wonderful as well. It was also, it had a practical use. It wasn't just for showing off. They thought any invasion might come from the front of the bus, which is heading towards the North Sea. Now, standing amongst the trees, the bloke on the plinth is Alfred Lord Tennyson. He was Queen Victoria's poet laureate, wrote Coming to the Garden Lawn, Lady of Shalott, Charge of the White Brigade, and he came from Somersby in the Lincolnshire North, so he was a Lincolnshire man. And he's there with his dog Corenda. Now this part of Lincoln was where the Romans decided they were going to have their baths. They didn't have the water here. Goodness knows why they decided to have the baths here, but they did. And the water actually came from Roaring Main Spring, which is a mile away downhill and underneath Waitrose at the moment actually. And somehow the Roman engineers managed to get the water a mile uphill to here where they were going to have the baths. They made themselves a soap. They were keen on this with their own. They made themselves a soap which was made from sheep fat sort of squished together with actually they were bedded as very thin. And apparently the evidence is being found in the garden somewhere. I haven't looked at it. And they had Roman looms. I've actually been into a couple of Roman looms and everything. Quite an experience. You didn't do what's going to come out when you're finished. Close the door. You see something terrible so underneath the corner of the semicircle. Sort of chatty and friendly, you know. And you clean yourself with a sponge on a stick. When you finish with it, you put it down for the next person to use. I know, it gets worse. If you get hold of this thing wrongly, you are said to get hold of the wrong end of the stick. That's where it comes from, honestly. It's gruesome, isn't it, really? There's a lovely view of Newport Archer. We'll have another look at it. It's on your map. It's the only road gateway in Lincoln, which traffic always passed through. I drove through there earlier today. It's a little gem. They still get lorries stuck under there. They make that now, of course. Usually you can get them out, take the air out the tyres and winch them out, but in the 60s they got a Grimsby fish lorry well and truly stuck. And they had to number the stones, dismantle part of the arch, get the lorry out and then rebuild it as per the Romans. Marvellous. There was archaeological digs in both these gardens. I decided to bus a couple of years ago to eat everywhere. And this part of the tour takes us up to the Museum of Lincolnshire Life. It's a little gem. It's artifacts from our social history, 1750 to today. So there's a round shop laid out the way they would be, selling buttons and stars and things like that. I mean, things that were in my granny's house. Well, the old people would things that were in my granny's house. It's kind of accessible. It's set out like a donut. You wander around at your own pace. There's a shop selling tea and coffee. It's free to enter, last entry 44, so you can't wait. Tomorrow, it's available free to use tomorrow. There's bits of miniature bits and pieces of the military history of Lincoln, and of course agricultural bits and pieces, so you find old tractors and threshing machines. It's accessible, it's one of my favourites. Now the people who are born in Lincolnshire are yellowbones, so we've got some yellowbones. Oh, we've got one. You do you? Right, so it's not as cowardly as you might think. But then there's all sorts of legends. One is the people who lived in the Pennies, which were sort of poor, jaundiced and Martin Swampy, and they were poor. So they're a bit yellow. Don't like that. Stagecoach that went from Lincoln to London had a navy blue top and a yellow underside. Not keen on that one. But the Lincolnshire Regiment of Foot had a yellow flag, yellow lapels on their jersey. Yeah? Come on, take that top choice. And you'll see the Lincolnshire Regiment of Foot in this museum of British life, in that red brick building on the far side of the crossroads this way. You might notice the sails of a windmill as we go around there. That's Dennis behind the open weekend dance tunes. The thing still turns on Highway 4 do. She had a windmill in her garden, and her windmill had a top on, and that one. So they brought heavy lifting to Joan's garden and hooked the top off her windmill, pounded it here into Lincoln and put it onto Ellisbeth, and gave her a fiberglass replica. So that's really Joan's windmill, every much as it's Now the castle walls here, now interesting, 1066, you probably know about 1066. So 1072 you start on the castle, but before that 1068 you start, sorry, 1068 you start on the castle, 1071. So you get the two fences sort of close. And this was a good rampart to start with, which swapped it to stone about 100 years ago. Because stone is more robust. And the wall walk is complete for the first time ever, and it's fabulous. Can't recommend it highly enough. You can see inside the castle, which is lovely, but you can see the whole of the valley and the whole of Lincoln laid out before you. 40 miles under water. That's super duper. And this side of the bus, on your left, is Hangman's Ditch. Nice little primary school was where they hung people. The law was that until 1868 you had to be executed in public, and until 1814 because none was there. People came in droves. In fact, they had to take the hanging inside the castle for crowd control. They came in droves to watch these poor devils slowly strangled to death. It could take half an hour. And friends of their family, friends of the executed one, or small boys that you could pay, would hang on to your legs to speed things up. You think about it, and they were called hangers on. And it was a guy from Lincolnshire, cobbler, who invented the thought before. He worked out the weight of the body and how far it would have to fall, so that you snapped your neck with your belt to a practical joke. But it was gruesome time, absolutely. And they came out to watch, you know. Anyway. The water tower just behind us is designed by Sir Reginald Blomfield, because in the early 1900s, 03 and 4, there was a typhoid epidemic in the city, which killed 130 odd people and hospitalised 1,000 more because the water was polluted. So they brought fresh water from Elkerslie in Nottinghamshire to the tower there in 1911, so that people had fresh water. Blomfield was an architect of some renown. He designed our Usher Art Gallery and our library and parts of Regent Street, Piccadilly and the Mending Gate. They're all designed by Sir Reginald Blomfield. Super new four towers coming up now on your left. Don't forget Roman Street level, because a lot of this is below ground level, our ground level. And on the picture board here, you can see the lorry getting stuck and so on and so on. And this is Ermine Street that we're on now. Very famous Roman road that went from York to London. And of course, no accident that it goes right through the middle of Lincoln, because we were very important. And this part of Ermine Street led to the city centre where you find the basilica and the shops. These houses, some of them have been kind enough to say they've got Roman remains underneath. There's Mint-Wall Passage just down here, which is a Roman wall. And then there's a Roman portico under another one. But a lot of them have got Roman remains in the cellars. So the Roman cities were built on a grid pattern like the American ones. And so it all went straight into the middle. And down the middle of the road ahead of us, you can see circles in the cobbles. And that's where the pillars of the forum were. There's about 19 in all. So look down the middle of that road. Look where it says disabled in the middle of the road. You can see a circle there. And once you put one, you kind of follow the rest. But when it's wet, they show up from there. There's a whole load there. So this is a Roman well here under glass. This is the apse. By the trees, fellas, this is where they might catch you. It's this bit along here. This is the apse of a 6th century wooden church, picked out in cobbles just there. And the round turret on the castle walls, that's called Cobb Hall. And that's where they took the hanging in 1814 until 1868. So obviously it was still public, but the public couldn't actually make things themselves. And you could hang on the time. So inside the castle today, you've you've got a Victorian men's prison, which if you watch Downton Abbey, that was actually filmed in there. There's a court still working, and there's Magna Carta, of course. They spent millions on the castle. It's a major visitor attraction now. It's beautifully done. And Magna Carta, I must say, is beyond price. There's only 4 in the world. There's one here, one in Salisbury Cathedral, and 2 in the British Library. But the one you can actually see what it says is ours, and it's in there. It lives in its own climate-controlled crypt. It's so important. If it gets too hot or too cold or anything like that, it's go to top secret location. And the trees, fellas. After this lot, you should be okay. So, 1250, the barons forced King John to seal Magna Carta. He didn't want to. The crown, up until then, had complete power under God to take your wife, your kids, your land, your life. You were nothing. But Magna Carta and the Treaty of the Forest, of which there's only 2, and one of those is in there, gave some rights to the individual. Well, King John wasn't a popular king. He remained on it almost immediately afterwards, and took himself off to Newark Castle because the barons then seized power. They took Lincoln Castle by storm and invited the French to join them. So we were an occupied city for a while. King John VI was holed up in Newark Castle. If you're on the road, you've got a car, Newark Castle on the banks of the Trent, and although it's a ruin, it's quite an interesting ruin. You can see where things were. Anyway, the Battle of Lincoln Fair was so important, but no one's ever heard of it, including myself, I have to be honest. And we'd all be speaking French if you'd gone the other way, because the barons had invited the French to join them with a view not to taking just Lincoln and its army, but England and the crown of England. But they had a very old knight called William Marshall, who was, I think it might have been time, he was a very clever man, and he amassed an army and camped on the outskirts of the city. And the barons of the French didn't realise how big an army he got. Eventually they came out of the castle where they would have been safe, and William Marshall and his army defeated them. But the fighting raged all around the old citadel, where we've been driving the streets literally around the some of them managed to escape, and they made a dash down a steep hill, but of course there's a Roman gate at the bottom called the Stone. So that was a pinch point, and the Muslims got stuck there, and they were going to be slaughtered. It was absolutely horrible. The French commander was killed by an arrow through the eyesight of his helmet. I mean, really cool. But hugely important. We wouldn't be speaking French now if it had gone the other way, wouldn't we? If you think about it. Hugely important. Magna Carta apparently was offered by Britain to America to try and persuade them to join the war. So I'm told. But Magna Carta doesn't belong to the state, and it doesn't belong to the castle, although it's housed in the castle. It belongs to the cathedral, and it was the monks of the cathedral that said, "It is not yours to give, back off," and we've still got it here in Lincoln. Ours is where it was supposed to be. And some of the other Magna Carta have ended up just housed wherever they, but ours is the Lincoln copy. It says so. No, 1940, there was a young pilot flying a bomber back to base. His base was dead ahead, RAF Stanton, but had been damaged on a bombing raid over Europe, over Germany. And he clearly wasn't going to make it back to Scapton. So his aircrew bailed out over the city and were okay. But this young fellow, he was only 19, flew on and on and on, so the plane didn't crash into the residential part of the city. And it finally crashed into the church there. The young pilot hadn't allowed enough time with his parachute to him, so he died. But he was the only one that did. But it was a hugely great idea. Waddington, which is on the other side of the city, Coningsby, which is in the south of the county, and then Cranwell, RAF Cranwell sort of in the middle, and that's opposite me. So Scampton is cracking because that's where the Red Arrows are based at the moment. They practice over my house. How good is that, you know? But they're moving to Waddington, which means they'll still be flying over the city. So keep your eyes peeled. You will see them practicing over the city. And we also have the Battle of Britain, no, not Battle of Britain, the Dam Busters flew from Scampton as well. So it's got an enormously important history, Scampton. Waddington is going to be the home of the Arrows, and it's also the home of the AWAC, the early warning aircraft, the big white jet, with this massive sort of mushroom on the top. I mean massive mushroom, which is the early warning. I'm told it's the size of a ballroom once you get inside this thing, but it's where the early warning equipment is housed. And Coningsby in the south of the county, that's got the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, and it's got the new Typhoon is based there. And the drones that they use across the world are, I think they're all named after women, I'm not sure. Anyway, have a look at the Museum of the City now. She's sitting there if you go there. So, the tank was built by Foster. You need to know. Down in the valley. There's a road down in the valley too called Tritton Road, and that's where they test drove the tank, because the managing director of Foster's was a guy called William Tritton. So they named it after him. And if you go down into that part of town, it's sort of that way, if you go around the university area at all, you will see it. There's a model of Daphne sitting in the middle of a roundabout, looking very splendid. She's absolutely beautiful. And you will notice, ladies, that a lot of ladies working on the tank, because it was women that did it largely. The men were out doing battle at the front. So it was ladies that built the tank. There you go, see? Who knew? What we have now down in the valley is the university. An awful lot of the buildings down there are either the university itself, or halls of prayers, hotels that have been built to put up visiting venues and so on. So the university has made an enormous difference to the city. We are a heavy engineering city. We build tanks, we build planes, but we don't do them so much now, obviously. But we have young people, we have research, we have education. You know, it's a knowledge economy, and it's absolutely thriving. It makes such a difference in the city. When I came 40 years ago, it was shut times now. If you thought, well, let's go out, there's nothing doing, it's shut. Everything was like dark as it fell up a spire, you know. But now, we've got wine bars, we've got coffee shops, we've got restaurants, we've got performing arts, it's cracking. Absolutely lovely. In fact, we've got 3 theatres in Lincoln. We've got the performing arts centre, which is part of the uni. We've got the Theatre Royal, which is just open, and the Drill Hall. I mean, we do really well, because it's not a big town. We do really well with performing. I love nice theatres. So yes, you might think then that old Lincoln is up on the hill, because I said everywhere you go you're driving over the road, and it's true. And what you've got down here is the industrial university. Down there, there's a great marshy swampy mass that covered the whole of this part of Lincoln. The road wasn't deeply hemmed in as it is now with nice hotels and wine bars. It was a great marshy swampy mass. And the Coriol Torby tribe, an Iron Age tribe, settled down here. You've got fresh water, you've got a defendable high point, it's what you want, isn't it? And it's how we got our name, because the Iron Age word for a pool was flint. For a hill settlement, it was Don. We were Flint Don for a while. And then the Romans came, as you know, and Latinized us. We were then Lindensians. And then we became a really important Roman city where the Roman legionnaires could retire to. We became a colonial town. We became Linden, Colonia, and that's how you get Lincoln, Linden, Colonia, Lincoln. And it all started down here on Brandon. The Romans made an enormous difference to the city. The Romans built the Foster. It's a timbery little canal that joins this piece of water. Hey, well done, which joins this piece of water to the River Trent that pass that way. How they knew to go that way to link with the Trent, and in a more or less straight line, I do not know. Had I been doing it, we'd have ended up in Grantham somewhere. You know, their engineering skills were astonishing. But the Romans were great traders, you see. So they could trade from this little pool here across Europe. After the Romans, we had the Anglo-Saxons. They weren't many big parts of the city because they were agricultural people. But after them came the Vikings. Now the Vikings didn't just rape and pillage, they were great traders too. And they traded across northern Europe. From here, this is Bridgewater. There's 5 cities that came under Dane law: Lincoln, Stamford, Derby, Nottingham and Leicester. That's it. The rest of the country was ruled by the kings of Mercia. We're ruled by Nebar. And we've got Viking words in our place name. By and home, H-O-L-M-E that is, and thorpe, they're Viking words. So you've got Saxelby, that's what it is, Maplethorpe, Swanholme, you know? So we're still using Viking words. And in the Middle Ages, this was the 4th most important port in the land, and it's actually 40 miles. Because the Trent then links to the Ouse to the Humber, and the Humber flows into the sea. So 40 miles we are from the sea. So the Romans made it possible, you know, all these first generations of people. Now the Fosdyke goes that way. Ahead of us you've got the Brayford Pool, which you'll see in a moment, and then the Fosdyke goes that way out into the countryside. There's a nice walk along it. You can walk along the towpath. Don't choose a dodgy day because there's no cover at all. But it's about 3/4 of an hour to get to a little pub where you can decide on a sandwich and sit on the banks of the canal. Oh, it's lovely. Watch the barges go by. Yeah, really nice. I'll tell you the kind of thing it's very fine. I'll tell you about it in a minute. Because it's relatively new. It's designed by Lincoln about 15 years ago. And it was so bright colour that you know what to call it. You've got 2 green pots which represent the agriculture. We've already said it's a big important agricultural county. So the green quadrants represent the agriculture. The blue quadrants represent the big sky. The image is so flat. It's known for its big sky. Any view of Lincolnshire, but the skies are very fabulous sunset. You see it's bright red. Gorgeous. Anyway. And then the yellow bit across the middle, the yellow crossed bit is our sandy North Sea coast. And in the middle is a yellow fleur-de-lis, which is a symbol of the Virgin Mary, because she's the patron saint of the city. And that's what the flag means. But it's everywhere, you'll see it all over the place. Normally on the county offices. Brayford Pool coming up. So this is where you'll see the university. This is the old industrial park. The silver municipal statue thing ahead of us is actually a clock. And it's one of my favourite things, but it's not working. The water fills up one street, then overlaps into another street, overflows into another street, and so on. And then on the hour, all the scoops dip down. The thing jinks round a bit to tell you the hour. But it's this thing ahead of us. The Brayford Bell is now parked up for the day, but she normally goes from the extreme left here, behind the Wagon Manners restaurant. They're just tying her up for the day. And this is the Union, all across the buildings on the far bank, that's all the Union. This is the something like this time to do. Good shopping up in the bay. This is a nice place to wander around. So the Fosdyke goes dead ahead out of that end of the road. You can see cars queuing on the bridge there, on the road bridge. The Fosdyke goes underneath, and the towpath, if you want to do it, just follow your nose up under the bridge and keep going into the countryside. You soon get out to where there's houseboats and lily pads. It's rather nice. Now the hotel here, the Hilton, has something else which is also rather nice. The ladies might like to know. The lift goes up the outside of the building here. And there's a rather nice cocktail bar at the top. In fact, the cocktails are pretty good. I was there on Wednesday. Oh, it was so nice. And it's lovely here when the sun goes down.